views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
And hello, everyone, and welcome to Open, the one and only show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. I'm your host, Daren Jaime. Today, we'll update you on what's happening in and around our borough, as well as across New York City. Coming up on today's show, we go front and center with an organization that's dedicated to encouraging inner city youth to pursue careers in STEM. And then also, we'll learn about an international not-for-profit organization that's empowering women to achieve economic independence. And then later, we'll also talk about the new programs being launched at the Thinkubator, supporting youth and the Bronx community. And then finally, we'll learn about a program educating and building awareness of hospice care and its benefits among Black and Latino New Yorkers. So stay tuned, because all this and much more is heading your way. Right now, we're officially open. And hello, everyone. I am Daren Jaime, and you're watching Open. Today is Wednesday, February the 10th. And yes, Open is a live and interactive program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to your TV set. We also want to encourage you to stay connected to us on all of our social media platforms at BronxNet TV. You're also welcome to join us on our website at bronxnet.org. A special shout out to all of those watching on the MNN channel, as Open is being broadcast live simultaneously on Manhattan Neighborhood Network's channel. Well, a lot has certainly been going on through the course of this past week. Can't take you through everything, but we can take you through a few things with our Bronx updates. We start off with coronavirus news. New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo announced that New Yorkers who have comorbidities can now get the vaccine starting Monday, February the 15th. Individuals with comorbidities account for 94% of COVID-related deaths. Governor Cuomo stated the state is crafting a final list of eligible New Yorkers with CDC guidance. The CDC's list of underlying health conditions of increasing risk during COVID-19 infections includes cancer, heart disease, and type 2 diabetes. In other news, a recent survey of 800 teachers by Educators for Excellence, the study notes student involvement is down significantly since the pandemic began. Our BronxNet reporter, Clarissa White, brings us details.
1 year into a pandemic that has shaped the way of life, many things have changed and become the new normal, including education and the way students learn, which has drastically changed.
Access for a lot of the students across the board, it's clear, isn't really equitable.
Elizabeth Hayela, a 7th and 8th grade special education teacher in the Bronx, says the most difficult part of teaching during the pandemic is students without access to remote capabilities.
There's something to be said across the board of the human interaction being such an important facet of the education system.
In a recent survey of 800 teachers by Educators for Excellence, it notes that student involvement is down significantly since the pandemic began. 61% of teachers reported student learning became worse. 60% reported that students weren't completing assignments or homework. 57% reported that student participation dropped, and 56% of teachers reported that attendance plunged significantly. Last year, in a December 10th press briefing, Mayor Bill de Blasio acknowledged learning loss among students throughout the 5 boroughs.
There will be a COVID achievement gap, and we have to close that COVID achievement gap.
In the briefing, he proposed a plan titled the 2021 Student Achievement Plan that will begin September of this year.
In September, there will be a new normal. Let's be clear. Our approach will be based on everything we have learned through this very challenging time.
What's included in the plan is to determine what ground schools lost during the pandemic, to improve digital curriculums throughout the 5 boroughs, to create a one-stop digital learning hub. They plan to improve professional development for staff, a parent university to provide assistance to parents, and to address students' mental health needs. The American Psychological Association applauded the 2021 Student Achievement Plan for supporting the mental health of students. Hayela says that she's noticed a drop in participation from her students that she believes is due to a decline in overall mental health and wellness.
Nobody can really just be home for an indefinite amount of time and experience the same wellness as they would if they were still in the social environment as a classroom.
The plan is set to take effect in September, first focusing on the 27 communities hit the hardest by COVID-19. Reporting for BronxNet, Darissa White.
And thank you, Darissa. And that's all the time we have for our Bronx updates. Stay tuned. We've got a full show. Open begins and continues right after this.
Who's most at risk for coronavirus? People over 65, people with underlying medical conditions like heart disease, chronic lung disease, asthma, diabetes, people undergoing cancer treatment, and people with weakened immune systems. What should you do if you or a loved one is at higher risk? Avoid close contact with people, avoid crowds, stay home if you can, wash your hands frequently. Learn more ways to protect yourself and others at coronavirus.gov.
There's a special election on Tuesday, March 23rd, and if you live in any of these neighborhoods, you'll want to pay attention. Your councilman, Andrew Cohen, is now a judge, and there are 5 candidates looking to replace him. Whoever wins on March 23rd will join New York City's primary lawmaking body, making decisions that affect you, your family, your home, and even your workplace. Starting in 2021, New York City will use ranked choice voting in primary and special elections for local offices. Ranked choice voting simply means that voters can rank up to 5 candidates in order of preference, instead of casting a vote for just one. You can still vote for just one candidate if you prefer. You can learn everything there is to know about the District 11 City Council race and the candidates by visiting ballotpedia.org and riverdalepress.com. Stay informed, and most importantly, make sure you mail your absentee ballot the day before Election Day on March 23rd, or safely head out to the polls to have your vote count and your voice heard.
And welcome back. Minorities, and particularly women of color, are traditionally underrepresented in STEM fields. Digital Girl Inc. is a not-for-profit organization that's committed to reversing this trend. Now, the organization's mission is to empower inner-city youth, especially young girls, to pursue careers in science, technology, engineering, and math. They're motivated by the nation's overall struggle to produce an adequate number of STEM professionals and the underrepresentation of women and people of color. Joining us now to share a little bit more about the details of the program is the founder and executive director of Digital Girl Inc., Michelle Gall. And Michelle, good to have you back.
Thank you so much for having me again. Good to see you.
Good to see you. And when we talk about STEM, obviously we know that a lot of times we are in communities of color, as I said in the lead, the last to really embrace it. I know you're trying to, build a bridge there and try to do some different things. Talk to us about the work of Digital Girl.
Absolutely. So, really our mission, as you said, is to inspire and to expose the people in our community, particularly young women, people of color, to understand that we really need to do more than just consume technology. We really need to become the producers of technology. So our goal is to demystify what STEM is, because a lot of times we really don't know. We hear STEM, we think scientists, we think robotics. There's so many different fields within the STEM arena that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be great at math. It doesn't mean that you have to, love math. There's so many different professions, and that's what we want to open the door and set the foundation for. And then the other thing that we find is that once people understand exactly what computer science is, what exactly, the math entails, they actually find out it's not as hard as they think, and it can be a lot of fun. So we go into schools, we partner with community-based organizations in schools to supplement their curriculum, bring in computer science, programming, coding, some little bit of robotics. And then we tie in the other fields that we know that they are getting in school, like science, like math. But what they're not getting is that technology piece and that engineering piece, unless it's a specialized school.
Yeah. And so you have the opportunity to really do something special. You've got something called the DGI Virtual Hangout. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So like the rest of the world, we were thrown into this whirlwind in March, right? When, all of New York City shut down, the schools were shut down, jobs were shut down, everyone had to work from home. And we really wanted to make sure we were there to support our community. We really wanted to give the children a sense of normalcy. We also wanted to give parents an outlet, because if you're working from home and class is over at 3:00, what are you doing with the rest of the hours that your kids are in the house, right? So we switch all our programming online, virtually. Everything is free. Our program is never charged. There's no cost to our participants. We try to get support from anywhere. We take donations, contributions, but we don't want costs to be a barrier for our students to be a part of the program. So we just went online and we just started offering programming 5-6 days a week. The virtual hangout is still up, it's still running, and we're still offering our programming online.
And so for people who want to get connected to your digital virtual hangout, how do they do that?
They can just go to our website, digitalgirlinc.org, and click on that menu bar, and you're going to see DGI Virtual Hangout, and just click on it, and you're right there. That's the easiest way to access us.
Yeah. And also for young people, obviously seeing them involved in coding. I know that you really want to spend a lot of time cultivating that STEM, that's those STEM categories, and coding is huge. Talk to us about how you're getting the young ladies involved in coding, which is something that sometimes we're not the first ones that want to say, I want to do this.
Right. Well, when you say coding, we go into the classroom, and the first thing we do is we take a survey. We want to know how much exposure, how much information the students have about coding already. So we'll ask, what is coding? You know what coding is? They're like, yeah. And we say, what's coding? They're like, hacking, So we're like, well, let's clean this up a little bit. So we really, I think what our secret is that we use hands-on projects. I wish our director of programming, Tony Robinson, was on the call with us. She really is really great at picking out projects that students can make and actually feel like it's a tangible thing that they can leave with. So it's not the same as if you're just sitting there and you're typing away and the teacher's telling you, put this here, put this here. We're saying, hey, we're going to build an app today. This is how this is coding. This is what it looks like. We're going to code an app, or we're going to make a game. We're going to create a virtual storyboard. We're going to create a website, we're going to create a tipping calculator. There are all these things that we give the students an opportunity to jump in and have fun, to create and be able to leave with something that they can share with their family and friends, and then expose them to and say, hey, this is this thing that I created, and this is what coding is like.
And so as I think about coding, I think about how you just said it right there. People say, coding is hacking, right? That's their perception. But give us a little bit of the backside of it. After they learn that coding isn't hacking, after they learn that, listen, there's a whole lot more to this. What's the reaction of young people who participate, who may not be so familiar in the beginning, but then have an opportunity to go through the program?
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, you see, and that's another one of our goals, is to increase confidence in wanting to be a part of the conversation. So all of a sudden now we see these kids that were totally shy, didn't think that they could do it, go to being really confident and saying, well, I know that we built this, but I want to do this next. We see children changing majors. We have our high school students who sometimes you get to actually pick that major, and they're saying, hey, this is what I want to do now. Or a college student that just graduated from high school. We have had parents and students text us, email, call us and say, hey, I was going to school for this, but now I'm going to go to school for this because you guys gave me the confidence to do that. It's really, really inspiring, because sometimes nonprofit world is hard, and so we'll have those days sometimes where we're like, I'm like, why am I doing this again? Like literally banging my head and like, this is what you wanted. And then we'll get that phone call, or I'll look with my t-shirt on and a parent will say, hey, you're from Digital Girl Inc. My daughter goes to your program, and she loves it. She just changed her major. So those are the things that keep us going.
Yeah. Well, what do we have coming up in the future before we wrap up? Tell us, like, what are some of the things you got coming up in the near future?
Oh, actually, I'm so happy you asked. Digital Girl Inc. will be opening the first of its kind STEM lab in the Bedford Union Armory, which is located in Brooklyn. It's on Bedford and Union. And, we'll be offering our services now 24, well, not 24/7, but we'll be open on a daily basis for students to actually come in, because right now what we do is we bring our programming to places. So now for the first time, people can actually visit us. We're going to have 3D printing, we'll have computers, we'll have robotics, we're going to have everything is going to be amazing. So we're looking forward to that opening sometime this spring, late spring.
We look forward to seeing what happens in the late spring. Obviously, while we're all virtual, this is actually a little bit advantageous for you because obviously we're in the digital virtual age. So has it really been, and I'll ask the question, has it really been burdensome for you trying to make that whole shift, given the fact that we're COVID and we're now virtual?
People think it's easier. It's actually a little harder, pulling everything together virtually, having people working in separate spaces. It's a little bit harder to get it up and running and just a little bit harder to manage it. But once it was up and running, it's really awesome. We're really thankful. We talk to our staff. A lot of our staff have family and friends who have lost their employment. We have not had to do that because we're still able to offer our programming and switch everything virtually. And that's the future. That's what we've been trying to get through to our kids and get through to our interns. And so it was great for us to actually have this real life situation happening to say, hey, this is the benefit of working in a digital realm, because you can do everything remotely.
Well, Michelle, thank you so much for joining us on great work that's going on with Digital Girl. And hopefully you'll be able to continue empowering and engaging some more of our young people to take it on to another level.
Thank you so much for having me.
Michelle Gall, our guest here on Open. Now listen, for more information, you can visit their website at digitalgirlinc.org. Also, you can follow them on Instagram and Twitter at Digital Girl Inc. We've got more show. Stay with us. Open will return with yours truly right after this.
When taking public transportation, don't touch your phone. Carry hand sanitizer and use it immediately upon leaving the bus or train. Avoid touching your face. If someone is coughing or sneezing, move away. Wash your hands with soap and water as soon as possible. Limit contact with poles. If possible, avoid rush hour. Don't eat or drink on public transportation. Keep your bag off the floor or other surfaces. Avoid directly touching turnstiles. Stay up to date with the latest from your local health department and CDC.
And welcome back. Dress for Success is a not-for-profit organization that is global, empowering women to achieve economic independence by providing a network of support, professional attire, and the developmental tools needed to help women thrive and work in life. Since starting the operation in 1997, Dress for Success has expanded to almost 150 cities in 25 countries, helping more than 1.2 million women work towards self-sufficiency. Joining us now and providing more information, we are pleased to be joined by the Senior Director of Program Operations at Dress for Success, Natalie A. Borneo. And we thank you so much, Natalie, for being here with us.
You're welcome, Dan. Pleasure to be here today. We are excited to share as much as we can about Dress for Success.
Well, you guys have really done it. And as I talked about the amount of people that you have actually had the impact on, give us a little bit about the work that Dress for Success is doing currently.
You can imagine that in this climate, Dress for Success has really hit the nail on the head by continuing to be a tremendous resource to women who need a network critical for them, for their personal and professional development. We're just amazed at the women who have stayed close to our organization and others who have joined us as they found themselves in very unfamiliar spaces because of this pandemic. Many of the women we serve are working in spaces that are called the front line, right? So they are teachers, they are retail workers, they are food service providers, they are cleaners, they work in hospitality, they are mothers, they are caregivers, and this perfect storm of the pandemic has either found them displaced from their jobs, on furlough, voluntarily leaving their jobs because they're not able to manage the demands of work and now homeschooling and caring for elder parents. So through our Dress for Success network, we have been able to provide ongoing support for women virtually. We have a number of professional workshops where we are able to bring female leaders, male leaders, all contributors and mentors, helping women to find their footing with professional courses that will help them build their networking skills with those skills that they need to perfect and manage virtual interviews now in lieu of in-person, or just really understanding how to navigate the world of work from where they're sitting in their homes, and giving them hope by allowing them to also connect with other women. You know, the beauty of this virtual world that we find ourselves in is the elimination of geographic barriers, right? So as long as a woman can access the internet, as long as she has a device, whether it be a tablet, a phone, a computer, she has found a way to participate in a community that is supporting her. They are also supporting each other. These women are incredible. They find a way to help one another, even when they are not doing well themselves. So we just
talk to me a little. I didn't mean to cut. I just want to cut in and ask a question, because when you talk about not doing well themselves, I wanted to ask about those challenges, right? What are some of the more common challenges that maybe we're not so familiar with that women are wrestling with and dealing with, particularly in a time like this?
Well, you know, when we talk about the frontline worker, some of those jobs realistically are not coming back, right? A lot of organizations have found that during this pandemic time, they're actually able to conduct business virtually. So they no longer need that robust staff on site, whether they be receptionists or administrative workers, you know, anyone in that role that made an office dynamic work in person has found themselves displaced. So now the thought is, where do I go from here? How do I upskill? How do I network virtually when I can't see people? I can't attend events in person. How do I stand out? How do I feel confident enough to reach out to someone on LinkedIn and approach them about opportunities. We are providing that in the community that we have. We are seeing women become more confident, more adept at navigating through virtual means. They are still meeting with coaches who are volunteers like you and me, helping them with fixing their resumes to really talk about their accomplishments, the transferable skills, which are very important, and why they should be considered for opportunities. They're also building up their LinkedIn profiles and making decisions around appropriate upskilling options, right? Not just randomly going out and taking every online class, but planning their strategy for their career direction and change.
Talk to me about volunteers, because I know a lot of the work that you do does center with volunteers. So how can a person be engaged as a volunteer for the Work for Success and the work that's going on?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, this mentoring opportunity for women occurs virtually. And we are really grateful to see a number of professionals reach out to say, hey, I think I would love to be able to coach a woman one-to-one to help her with her questions around interview prep, to help her with mock interviews, to help her with figuring out how to present herself on camera, select the best attire for an interview. So people can volunteer by reaching out to their local Dress for Success affiliate. And thank you so much for talking about where we are, and asking for or inquiring about opportunities to be virtual coaches or mentors who follow women for a bit and really help them make sure that they land the opportunity. And when they do, help them with questions they may have in terms of being more successful in new work environments. We also enjoy having professionals provide workshop content. So being the curators and developers of meaningful workshops that help women with understanding their choices, their strengths, their strategies. We are really excited to be able to provide these workshops with the help of our volunteers. And so we have individuals who do this for us, who may be career coaches or leaders who have taught internally in their organizations, or organizations, corporate sponsors stepping forward to say, we have internal resources that we would like to make your own. We'd love to volunteer. So if they just reach out to our affiliates and express their desire to help, we welcome that.
Yeah. And lastly, how can people donate? Because we know that a lot of the work that you do in improving the lives of women does rely on donations as well as volunteerism, but I did not get a chance to talk about donations. So very quickly before we go, how can somebody donate and what would you be looking for donations for?
We are always looking for that crisp attire, professional attire for women. It's most helpful to have clothing that is ready to wear, ready to donate, so it's cleaned and it's ready to go. We're building ourselves back up in terms of accepting donations, but each Dress for Success location has a plan that works for them to be able to safely accept donations, again, of professional attire that's ready to wear, accessories that are helpful to women, even necklaces, pocketbooks that are new or gently worn, for the women who are still going out, shoes, but most definitely we urge anyone who has this professional attire and would like to support a woman by giving her that fresh look to reach out to their local affiliates and find out what the arrangement is for donating attire.
Well, we want to thank you so much for being with us and sharing with us here today, and certainly glad to have you, the great work that's going on. And I hope that we'll be able to see more volunteers and more women empowered, because that's ultimately what we want to see. Natalie, thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thank you for having us today.
All righty. And if you want more information, of course, we encourage you to go to their website. That's where you can get the information. Stay with us. We've got more open coming up. We're coming right back right after this. And welcome back to the show. The Thinkubator is offering Bronx youth 3 paid work-based learning experiences and an opportunity to engage in civic engagement. The organization recently announced the launch of its spring talent development and youth voice programs, continuing their commitment to supporting youth and the Bronx community through its programs. Here now to share a little bit more is the Thinkubator's lead facilitator and manager of Youth Voice, Julian Joyner. We're also joined by Assistant Director of Internships and Special Projects, Sharone Wellington-DeAnda, and then also Rap for Bronx's employer partner, Shana McCormick, and Thinkubator's Innovator Intern, Emmanuel Uzobuife. And we welcome you all to Open.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, let me ask you this. I'll start off first. For people who are not so familiar with the program, why don't you give us a little bit of a walkthrough? And after this, I'll start first with Sharone.
Hello, how are you? So the Thinkubator actually started in 2020 as a program in amplifying youth voices. And we incorporated in that supportive services for our students that would assist them to becoming the leaders of the workforce. And we started a summer program in July. We had, I believe, around 30 students in total, and we also have a full program. And with both of those programs, we have a mental wellness component that supports our students and ensures that they are heard, but also ensures that they have a safe space as they're dealing with COVID, just like the rest of us. This is one of the key components to our program, as well as one of the ways we ensure that youth voice is heard.
Yeah. And so when we talk about civic engagement, we know that civic engagement is key. Share with us a little bit from the perspective, Shana, of the work that you guys do.
So we have had the opportunity to work with the Thinkubator. We're now approaching our third round with the interns. We engaged in the summer and fall programs, and we had the opportunity to work with 5 youth from the Bronx for each of those cohorts. And we started basically in the summer. Our first cohort was basically defining what urban farming and gardening is, the similarities, the differences, and the importance of them within the community. Food insecurity is one of the main topics that they were focusing on, and how we can move from food insecurity to food security. So urban farms and gardenings has been our focal point. So the first cohort took care of kind of defining it. The second cohort in the fall had heavily researched and explored what it takes to jumpstart a garden or farm. And now as we enter our third cohort for the spring 2020 course, they'll be hired to assist Raptor Bronx in revitalizing a garden, from handling fundraising to design brainstorming and planning to physical cleanup of the garden. And the goal there is to really expose these students to potential careers within agriculture, technology, horticulture, nutrition, and beyond, which are all vital components to our community's well-being, health, and sustainability. So that's our play in the program.
And Emmanuel, share with me a little bit about your work as an intern. Obviously, you've had the opportunity to be hands-on with some boots on the ground. What has your experience been like?
Well, I've had the pleasure of being able to participate in all 3 programs that Thinkubator offers, such as Solves, Trains, and Leads. For Solves, I was able to assist Rosa Garcia, the owner of Mount Haven Bar and Grill. I was able to be part of a cohort that helped her bring more foot traffic to her restaurant during COVID. Her business was slashed in half, and so we were able to help her bring more customers. And for in the fall in Trains, Miss Wellington was able to give all of the members interview skills and job readiness skills, and they were able to partner us up with another organization. And I was able to volunteer with Hunger Free America, and with them I engaged in for civic engagement. I was able to phone people and encourage them to go out and vote. And then after that, I was able to, after voting was done, I was able to aid in getting information for a website for food insecurity, so that if anybody across America needed the nearest food bank, they would have all the information required to build the website. And then for Leads, is more food insecurity. We were able to make a waiver, and with that waiver, people across the Bronx can look for other food banks. And so all of that have culminated in me being able to really make a difference in my community, which is the main thing that I really love Thinkubator for.
Well, Julian, I want to get to you for a second. You manage Youth Voices, and that really deals with civic engagement as well, getting youth to be active and involved and actually having a voice. Share with us a little bit about Youth Voices and what goes on there.
Thank you. It's critical during this time. During the year that we had, we saw a lot of youth be able to, engage with their country, with their community in ways that they had never done before. And the Thinkubator exists to train, educate, and connect Bronx youth with, work-based learning opportunities, employment. But the core of what we do and what we really exist to do is to bring power to youth voices. We want to put the power in their hands, and part of the way that we do that is obviously through our programs, like Manny highlighted, through solves, trains, and leads. And I really just want to be able to highlight Thinkubator Leads, which is our youth council. And that is where we're able to really put the power in youth hands. And the other programs that we have, typically it's clients that will approach youth with, different opportunities. So for example, with Solves, we worked this past fall with Rethink Food, and we also worked with Margaret Sullivan's studio. Rethink Food was around figuring out a food insecurity strategy here in the Bronx. So really being able to understand and speak to what was going on, because they're residents of the Bronx, their families were impacted, really came up with some innovative ideas to be able to impact that. Thinking about the third place for Margaret Sullivan's studio. So besides work and home, what would be an ideal place for you? And students had some great ideas, not just around, thinking outside the box about a futuristic library, but bringing it home and, focusing and recentering all the youth of the Bronx. What about people who are homeless? How do we support them? How do we support youth who are food insecure? And so through our different programs, and especially through Leads, we ask the students to be able to lead and tell us what they want to be able to tackle. So currently we're tackling food insecurity. The next topic that we're going to be tackling is pollution and environmental racism. And students like Manny are instrumental and are the voice of the future. And we're so lucky to be able to have them to push this work forward.
Sharon, how do people, before we get out of here, talk to us a little bit about how people can get connected. If there's a youth out there that says, listen, I want to be a part, or a parent that says, I want to direct my youth to you.
So we ask people to go to our website. We literally have, it's the thinkubator.org. So go to the website. We have many different ways that you can connect with us, but the best way for youth to connect with us is to fill out the application for this spring. And even fill it out if you're not actually connecting for this spring, but you're looking forward to the summer to connect with us, and we'll be able to reach out to you and start that conversation. Again, our programs are about community supporting, and our youth are the very, very important component of that. So it is one of our ways that I would definitely urge people to connect with us is also through the urban farming. The internship program is actually going from an internship into an apprenticeship program, and the urban farm is supporting both the communities, the schools in the area, as well as connecting youth to their community and having that community part of a food sustainable model. And that is what we're bringing to the Bronx.
Well, I certainly want to thank you all for coming and sharing with us here on Open. Great work that the Thinkubator is doing. Continue to let us know, continue to keep us informed. And of course, as we said, if students want to become more involved, they have the website that they can go to, and parents, if they want to find more information, they can go to. Well, thank you all so much for being with us here on Open.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you reaching out to us. Thank you.
Glad to have you. Glad to have you. And we encourage you to stay with us right here on Open. Don't go anywhere, because guess what? We do have more show. It's coming up right after this.
We know that people are dealing with the health crisis, but there's also a lot of food insecurity.
We're giving out healthy food options, and that's what's key here.
If you're a senior, you have a disability, they'll actually deliver meals to you.
The residents are anxious, they're worried, they're scared, they want to be tested.
When things were happening in our community and we couldn't get the help.
There's almost a presumption of criminality that attaches to your skin color.
The site will prioritize those who are at highest risk in the population.
If you feel symptoms and you'd like to visit one of these COVID-19 testing sites here in the Bronx, you may call the State Health Department's hotline.
Important to note about this site is no reservations are needed. This is a walk-in clinic.
A lot of us are out of work and looking for something to do.
We have the machinery and the skills to make large scale of these masks and gowns.
Take care of your people. It's going to go way further than we actually can understand.
Right now, employees like myself are just adjusting to the new reality.
Reporting from Bronxnet, this is Trans.
And welcome back. Well, it started in the year 2015 through a partnership with Harlem Hospital. The HOPE program was created to educate and build awareness of hospice care and its benefits among Black and Latino New Yorkers. With COVID-19 shedding light on unpredictable situations where you may be in the hospital and can't have trusted loved ones by your side, HOPE also works with patients and families so they can understand advanced planning. Here now to share more and tell us is the director of VNSNY HOPE program, Michelle Drayton, and VNSNY HOPE clinical liaison, Clarissa Santos. And thank you both for being with us here on the show. And I know Clarissa's in the middle of work itself. Michelle, give me a little bit about the work that you guys are doing, as we said, talking about really reaching people at a critical time.
Daren, thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you. And yes, Clarissa, as an RN clinical liaison, is on her way to see a patient. This is the work that we do. You know, the HOPE program was developed to really address the gaps in access to care, similar to what we're seeing in terms of COVID, whether it's around vaccinations or access to primary care. And the HOPE program stands for Hospice Outreach Patient and Provider Engagement Program. And we're really focused on ensuring that people, particularly African Americans and Latinos, in the Bronx and in Harlem have access to hospice. And there are a lot of myths and misperceptions around what hospice is. And our program really works to debunk those myths. Hospice is one of the most comprehensive services that patients can access when they're terminally ill. And we're really also prioritizing the need to understand what advanced care planning is. I think many people are finding themselves in situations where they may end up in a hospital and they don't have an advanced care plan. They don't have a healthcare proxy who knows what their medical wishes are should they become unable to, you know, to talk about that. You know, also to make sure that they are clear about life-saving, practices.
Yeah. Clarissa, talk to me a little bit about the work that you do as a liaison. Obviously, that's a go-between. Talk about how you work as a liaison.
Well, we get referrals from the community, from the hospitals that we partner with, the nursing homes, sometimes from physicians. My job as a liaison is basically to take that referral, you know, get to, first of all, introduce myself to the family. Recently, I've been dealing with a lot of Spanish-speaking families for which the language is a big barrier. So I basically speak to the patient, if possible, the family, basically tell them what hospice care is, you know, they were referred, and just basically answer any questions that they have. Basically, once they understand and they accept it, and I've gathered the information I need, I speak to a doctor from VNSNY, just to ensure that they are eligible for hospice. And from there, I hand it off to our team, who then admits the patient to our program. And at that time, the patient has our full support 24/7, as we tell the families. A lot of times, because of the language barrier, sometimes they don't, not told this. In the hospital, sometimes they might not be a Spanish-speaking social worker or someone in the hospital who can tell them about this. So I'm usually the first person who basically informs them about how hospice and palliative care can be beneficial to their relative.
Right. And when we talk about breaking down those barriers, I mean, it's very important. How big and how huge are those barriers? To the average person, they may not think they're huge because they're not as intricately involved. But for those of us who has a working knowledge, it's a pretty huge barrier.
It's huge, Daren. You know, on a national level, when you look at hospice utilization, first and foremost, New York State ranks far below. We're 49 out of the 50 states in hospice utilization. That means that people who are eligible for hospice are not getting the information, whether or not they're in the hospital and they're terminally ill, that there really should be an option. You know, whether I choose aggressive therapy or I want to just focus on comfort and pain management. When you drill down even further, you look at, you know, the white population at a national level. They represent around 70% of those that are on hospice. African Americans, it's only about 7.5% or 8%, and Latinos is only 6%. When we drill down even further into New York State, and you know, this is a state that has the most sophisticated medical services and technology, our utilization rate of hospice is only 27%. And that's for all populations, Medicare population in particular. But you know, hospice is available to anyone at any age. So if you are terminally ill, if you have you know, multiple hospitalizations, if you're not getting better, the most important thing, and this goes with anything, is that you have to have the right provider. You have to have the right relationship with your healthcare provider so that you can have the conversation. And Daren, you know, unfortunately, oftentimes it is Visiting Nurse Service of New York that's being called in to talk to the patient about, you know, their illness, rather than really having sort of that discussion very thoroughly with their physician. So that's one of the primary barriers.
Yeah, and we're seeing more and more Black Americans really work in the field of home health care. Am I correct?
That is absolutely correct. And that's one of the major risk factors when you talk about COVID-19. You know, whether or not you are a home health aide, a registered nurse, a licensed practical nurse, or a social worker, you know, you're working in hospital facilities and oftentimes, you know, coming in contact with patients. And so, yes, we are the essential workers. And it's just critically important that everyone in the community knows about hospice. There's no financial barrier. It's part of one's Medicare benefit. If you're not of Medicare age, then you can access it at any age. There's really, we take Medicaid, all insurances, and we even do charity care. You know, Visiting Nurse Service of New York has really been on the front lines of addressing disparities. And that's something that we're really focusing on now, is really focusing on racial inequities, whether or not it's hospice or other, you know, healthcare services. We want to really begin to close that gap.
Clarissa, Michelle used the word gap, and I want to talk about that gap for a minute. As a Latina nurse, do you feel that the work that you do helps to bridge the gap, given the fact that sometimes people are very uncomfortable or just don't know?
I definitely do feel bridges being, like I said, the main barrier I've encountered as a Latina nurse and in the Latino community is the language barrier. A lot of times, even when the primary physician speaks Spanish, sometimes even they're not able to convey the information the patients would need. Had a recent case of a patient who was admitted to our service, whose family honestly said that they had accepted a referral. They were interested in it, but they didn't really understand what it was. So I sat with the family for about a good hour, explained to them the unique situation about how their relative would benefit from our service, what we can do. And, they were just very thankful afterwards. They just said they were just so relieved that they would make the right decision for that relative, and that, that this person would be basically guaranteed to be at home. I know both in the African American and Latino communities, family is very important. We're taught from a young age that, we take care of our own. So a lot of times when we see our mother, our father, our aunt, some relative going into the hospital, we're being told that, it's basically nothing we can do at this point. The decision is, do we leave them at home where we can surround them and be with them, but not be able to provide them the medical care they need? Or do we leave them in the hospital? And with these times of COVID, a lot of times leaving your parents or your loved ones in the hospital might mean that you might not see them again, despite, the communications that, a lot of places have. I work in a nursing home before I came to VNSNY, and we did have, for example, relatives who could video chat with their relatives in the home. But some places might not have these facilities. So often making that decision is very hard. So being that VNSNY and the whole program can bring this bridge, can allow the person who's ill to be at home, to be surrounded by family, and still receive all the medical attention they need. It's just such a relief to these families and to these patients. And I feel that they're more at peace. If a patient knows that they're able to be at home, knowing they might not have much time left with their loved ones, knowing and no time do they have to leave the loved ones, they can be with them, is just such a relief. And I think it benefits both the patient and the families.
Well, Clarissa, Michelle, we got to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us. But I do want to say thank you for the work that you continue to do in impacting people at a most vulnerable time. And so want to let you know, if you want more information, be sure to visit them on their website, vnsny.org/hope, or you can call them at 212-609-1900. Well, we've come to the end of our show today. I want to thank all of our guests for joining us, and most of all, you, the viewer, for tuning in. And if you missed any part of the show, of course, you can catch the Recablecast on BronxNet's channel 67, if you have channel 2133, or anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. Until the next time we meet, we say stay safe. We say keep your mask on, social distance, do all that you need to do. We're watching Open. If you want a brand new episode, check out Rena Valentine on Friday. She'll give you a brand new episode featuring arts, entertainment, and also keeping you up to date with the latest going on in New York City and the coronavirus. We'll talk to you later.